On the news, President Buhari urges stronger bilateral ties between Nigeria and South Africa. Court upholds Charles Soludo's election as Anambra governor-elect. And Abuja civil servants scramble to meet government's December 1 vaccination deadline. We're glad to have you join us on News Now. I am Folashade Ogurinde. Heads of Africa's biggest economies have met today to discuss ways to strengthen economic and social ties. This comes as President Muhammadu Buhari in Abuja today received South Africa President Cyril Ramaphosa at the opening of the 10th session of Nigeria's South Africa Binational Commission in Abuja. Buhari said a strong bond between Nigeria and South Africa would be of great benefit to Africa as a catalyst for economic, technological, social and cultural development.
Today has witnessed the signing of a new memoranda of understanding between Nigeria and South Africa in diverse areas, including youth development, women and child empowerment, and political consultations. Critical areas that will lead to increased people-to-people contact. Existing memorandums of understanding signed during previous binational commission meetings were also reviewed. These include memorandums of understanding on military cooperation, power, cooperation in the field of geology, mining and mineral processing, oil and gas, and several others. Today's inauguration of the Joint Ministerial Advisory Council on Industry, Trade and Investment will enable the private sector of the two largest economies in Africa to further promote economic cooperation and development.
On his part, President Cyril Ramaphosa said the agreement and memoranda of understanding signed by Nigeria and South Africa is significant to the growth of both countries.
We've just concluded a successful 10th session of the Nigeria-South Africa Binational Commission. President Buhari and I witnessed the signing of a number of agreements and memoranda of understanding to advance trade and investment, development, economic upliftment, as well as youth empowerment, amongst others. These new agreements between our two countries broaden the scope of our cooperation on issues of common interest and mutual benefit, and we will continue to work together to ensure their implementation. During this BNC, we also launched two groundbreaking initiatives. The first is a joint ministerial advisory council on trade, investment, and industry. This council will promote economic relations between our two countries that are the very large economies on our continent.
President Muhammadu Buhari is one that his administration would not hesitate to punish heads of NDAs that fraudulently present new projects as ongoing projects in the budget. President Buhari made this known at the opening of the 3rd National Summit on Diminishing Corruption in the Public Sector on Tuesday. The warning comes as the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, has attributed the high cost of governance and rising personal budget to illegal recruitment by some ministries, departments and agencies of government. For details in this report.
In May 2016, President Muhammadu Buhari admitted to the world that Nigeria is fantastically corrupt. 5 years after, the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, confirmed the high level of corruption across most sectors of government. The ICPC chairman, Bolaji Owasonoye, at this 3rd National Summit on Diminishing Corruption in the Public Sector, revealed the gross corruption within the public service, which has led to high cost of governance in the country.
ICPC investigation of some cases of illegal recruitment, for example, forwarded to us by the head of the Civil Service of the Federation, has so far implicated the Ministry of Labour and the University College Hospital Ibadan, and a number of corrupt staff of other MDAs at a lower level. This abuse of power is consummated with complicity of compromised elements in IPs. These cases are currently under investigation. At another level, a syndicate of corrupt individuals within the service corruptly employ unsuspecting Nigerians, issue them fake letters of employment, fraudulently enroll them on IPs, and post them to equally unsuspecting MDAs to commence work.
The ICPC boss also revealed that it had uncovered 257 duplicated projects amounting to 20.138 billion naira during a review of the 2021 budget.
ICPC review of the 2021 budget found that 257 projects amounting to 20.138 billion were duplicated, leading us to submit an advisory to the Honorable Minister of Finance, which was promptly actioned by the Minister to prevent abuse.
Reiterating his stance to fight corruption, President Buhari, in his remark, vowed to sanction those behind illegal recruitment into the public service, payroll padding, and retention of ghost workers.
Those who illegally bring in personnel into the public workforce by illegal recruitment, those who paid their personal payroll, those who retain ghost workers must be and will be severely punished.
Transparency International, in its Corruption Perception Index, ranked Nigeria as the second most corrupt country in West Africa and 149th in the world, mirroring global perception of Nigeria's biggest challenge, a social vice many administrations have promised to curtail with little or no headway. Folashade Ogurinde, TV360 News.
A federal high court sitting in Abuja dismissed the case against the election of Charles Soludo as the governor-elect of Anambra State. In a judgment delivered by Justice Taiwo, the dismissed suit sought to nullify Soludo's election on the allegation that he presented false information to the Independent National Electoral Commission during registration. The plaintiffs, Adindo Valentine and Egudikwe Chukwuebuka, had alleged that Soludo, in the affidavit attached to his nomination form, declared that he was contesting the Agwata 2 constituency seat when in fact he was contesting the governorship seat. But delivering judgment on Wednesday, Justice Taiwo held that the plaintiffs failed to establish a reasonable course of action. The court also awarded 2 million naira against the plaintiffs in favor of the second, third and fourth defendants. Moving on, the Lagos State government has said it does not agree with the hashtag NSAS panel of inquiry report, which claimed that no fewer than 9 persons lost their lives when armed soldiers stormed the Lekki tailgate to disperse hashtag NSAS protesters on October 20, 2020. The state government made this known in its 41-page white paper released on Tuesday night. It added that the inconsistencies and contradictions in the entire judicial panel report concerning the number of persons who died at Lekki tailgate and their cause of death rendered the panel's findings totally unreliable and unacceptable. While the state government accepted 11 out of the 32 recommendations made by the panel, it said 14 of the recommendations fall outside the powers of the state and will consequently be forwarded to the federal government for consideration. To discuss some of the key recommendations and comments contained in the Lagos State White Paper, I'm joined now by legal practitioner Liberus Oshoma. Thank you very much for joining us. The Lagos State government in its White Paper did not agree that several people obtained gunshot wounds. In fact, it stated clearly that only one individual suffered injuries sustained from gunshots. For the sake of justice and truth, where do we go from here?
Yeah, thank you. I had consistently accused the panel of not doing a thorough job, as regards the event that transpired at the Lekki tollgate. While I commend the panel for, covering the field as regards the event that has to do with police brutality, but unfortunately, the event of the 20th of October 2020, the panel was almost as if the panel was in a hurry to, give with one hand and take with another. The inconsistencies that the Lagos State government identified. In a case of death, mind you, we're talking about death of persons here. In a case of death or allegation of death of persons, especially when the allegation is about bullet wounds, the persons must not only be identified, persons also, it must be established that that person died as a result of bullet wounds and those bullets fired from a particular shot or a particular gun. But in this case, for whatever it was, we agree, and I know for sure that something happened in Lekki that day. Bullets were fired, whether live or blank. Some persons died. But in the panel report, I had expected that since the panel could not establish the authenticity of the people that died at the Lekki project, what the panel simply would have just done would be that allegations were made, investigations were carried out, but the evidence, for want of evidence, the evidence could not establish the actual number of persons or the persons that died because of the lack of forensic or the lack of inspections of the body. Because the evidence of the pathologists contradict clearly. The panel said they accept the evidence of the pathologists that conducted autopsy on the bodies. In one breath, they said they admitted the evidence and that it is credible and was not contradicted. In another breath, the panel simply said 9 persons died, and they did not state how they arrived at the fact that 9 persons died. From how were the bodies examined? They said 9 persons died at the Lekki toll gate. Whether they died of bullet wounds from fired from the guns, that also was not established. So for me, when we're talking about death and the cause of death is not established, it is not something that you expect a government to take claim.
Shoma, I'm sorry to interrupt you there. The panel also recommended that a monument be erected in order to keep the memory of lives lost at the Lekki tailgate. But the Lagos state government declined to accept that 9 lives were lost. Now, how difficult is it really to establish the fact whether any death occurred on October 20 of last year?
Yeah, ordinarily, it is a very difficult task, especially when the bodies have not been identified and those bodies have not been examined. It was also not in doubt that about 90 persons died all around Lagos. How come we are not even talking about all the 90 deaths that occurred in Lagos? We are so fixated on Lekki, where we have not been able to identify or establish that, bodies were examined in Lekki, and those bodies, actually, died as a result of gunshots from the military, which apart from, one of the bodies that was said to have been examined by the pathologist. How about those other people that died in Agege? How about those ones that died in Amuodofi? And, all of that. So for me, really, if we want to remember the event of the NSAs and the police brutality, one of the best ways to remember the memories of those that died to do things right. It is to reform the Nigerian police. It is to ensure that the police no longer harass people, because that was what actually led to the protest in the first place. So now listing people in Lekki toll gate, when there is a dispute, when it has also not been established that people actually died in that place, even though gunshots were fired. So for me, I think it is a hard call. But one thing is for sure,
I'm really sorry, it's this much we can take on the matter. But legal practitioner Libera Shoma, thank you so much for your contributions. Every first day in December, the United Nations marks World AIDS Day to revive global consciousness on the disease, which has killed more than 33 million people since the beginning of the epidemic in 1981. Despite local and international sensitization on the disease, 38 million people are living with HIV/AIDS worldwide, and in 2020 alone, 1.5 million people became newly infected with HIV. These rising infection and numbers cast a shadow on the United Nations target to end HIV/AIDS endemic by 2030. On the news tonight, I'm being joined by HIV counselor Gloria Obodo. Thank you so much for joining us on News Now. Well, let's talk about your experience as a person living with HIV in terms of access to antiretroviral drugs, especially during the height of the lockdown in 2020. Tell us about that.
Everyone, my name is Gloria Obodo, and coming to the question. The COVID-19 really caused a lot of problem when it comes to accessing ARV drugs in the facility level. And not just that, we got to recognize that there was a lockdown, no movement, and most of the HIV sites, the facility site, was used as isolation center. Like, let me just say, in FCT where I reside, we have National Hospital, we have Asokoro Hospital, we also have Matamat Gwagwalada Teaching Hospital, and all these hospitals are the people that pull crowd. They pull out crowds to pull out crowd for people who access treatment in that facility. At that point, it was a site that was said this site is for COVID-19 center, and then there was no medication for us to go to the facility and pick. And at that point, we have a second line drug stockout, because when we discovered that there was a stockout on second line treatment, it became a problem, and we couldn't fish out what to do as of that time. Some people travel from FCT down to Nasarawa. Some people make sure that they have this treatment and they risk their life to see that this treatment gets to their doorstep. But at the long run, we lost people living with HIV and AIDS because they don't have accurate information.
Indeed, Gloria, it's quite interesting to note that some people still believe that HIV/AIDS either does not exist or that it is a death sentence. Now, could you briefly tell us how would you address such misinformation about the disease?
We have had a lot of issues like that. Some of them will tell you that the HIV and AIDS is not existing, and some of them will even tell you that it's a spiritual problem. We have come across a lady in one of the states after carrying out the test, and we discovered that the lady is also positive. She was like, God forbid, back to which portion it is. So we have to encourage her, go to hospital for confirmation, yet she refused, and she was being kept in a church for prayer and fasting. Eventually we lost her. So these people still have this belief that HIV is a death sentence, and I want to let you know that we have a lot of people that has been living with HIV and AIDS for the past 22 years. We have people that have lived with HIV and AIDS since 2003. We have people that have lived with HIV and AIDS since 1999. If they did not tell you that this is who they are, you will not know, you won't believe, and they live their normal life. It's just like every other person having malaria, having typhoid. You go to your hospital, you get your medication, you take them, and you live your normal life. And with that, you will have people that also are HIV positive, who married, who give birth, and who also have access to their medication, and they became undetectable. And in this point, they can never transmit the virus to their sex partner. So I don't see a reason why people still believing that HIV is not existing and HIV is a death sentence. We should come out from it and accept the fact that HIV still lives with us, and HIV is not written on the forehead. So once you tested positive, my dear, go for treatment, go for HIV medication. It's free in every facility.
Indeed, HIV counselor Gloria Obodo, thank you so much for your contribution and your advocacy on preventing HIV/AIDS in Nigeria. Well, we'll take a break here, but still to come, South Africa President Cyril Ramaphosa calls for end to travel ban. For details of the story and more right after this break. Welcome back. Now here is a reminder of some of our top stories tonight. President Muhammadu Buhari says a strong bond between Nigeria and South Africa would be of great benefit to the continent as a catalyst for economic, technological, social and cultural development. He added that the inauguration of the Joint Ministerial Advisory Council on Industry, Trade and Investment would enable the private sectors of the two largest economies in Africa to further promote economic cooperation and development. We also told you that the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has dismissed the case against the election of Charles Soludo as the governor-elect of Anambra State. In a judgment delivered by Justice Taiwo, the dismissed suit sought to nullify Soludo's election on the allegation that he presented false information to the Independent National Electoral Commission during registration. Well, in case you missed any of our news bulletin, or for more updates, do log on to our website on www.TV360nigeria.com. You can also follow us on our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Google Plus at TV360 Nigeria. On Facebook, we are at TV360 Online. The federal government on Wednesday commenced enforcement of the COVID-19 vaccination mandate, with security agencies preventing unvaccinated civil servants from accessing their offices. The government's mandate saw civil servants in their numbers throng vaccination centers in a bid to beat the December 1st deadline by the federal government for the vaccination of civil servants. Anita Patrick in this report tells us the response by workers at the Federal Secretariat at the vaccination point.
Safety is paramount to every human, hence the federal government's mandate to all civil servants to get vaccinated against the coronavirus pandemic. Since the outbreak of COVID-19 across the globe, leaders in their various countries have taken necessary measures to keep their citizens safe, especially the call for vaccination to reduce the possibility of getting infected. In Nigeria, the federal government gave a December 1st deadline to all civil servants to get vaccinated, while many civil servants thronged the various vaccination centers provided at the Federal Secretariat, Abuja, to get their jabs. Others have divergent views to the vaccine administered government's directive.
For me, I felt the deadline was too close, was too sudden. They should have extended further.
By Monday or next week, I think it's going to be very strict or something. So you have to do it. It's very important. Very, very important. Not even for the government, actually, for your own health. It's good.
Ministry of Information, National Orientation Agency, they've actually done a lot. Even what they are doing today is a kind of sensitization. And they've told us all those myths about whether if you take it you will die, or they are trying to reduce the population of Africans. I think we have gone past that actually.
Meanwhile, a staff of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency says the government has created awareness to drive vaccination as well as debunking myths surrounding the vaccine.
What is important is for people to understand that this, the barring is to save everyone. One, you are not asked to get vaccinated by force. You can get a PCR test that says you are negative of COVID, or you come with your, vaccination card. So whichever way, if you want to go get the test, come with the test result that says you are no longer carrying or you don't have COVID-19. While if you want to get vaccinated, you go get it. So you have alternative.
In line with government's directive to ensure that civil servants are vaccinated, here we have at the Federal Secretariat where civil servants are seen lined up to ensure they get vaccinated. For starters, we had some of the civil servants said they were being barred from entering their offices, while others said they were given the grace to get vaccinated ahead of Monday, because from Monday they will need to show their cards ensuring that they have been vaccinated. Well, Nigerians are saying enough awareness has been created for Nigerians to know the reason behind the enforcement of government for Nigerians to be vaccinated, because safety comes first. Anita Patrick, TV360, Abuja.
Following South Africa's announcement that it had discovered a new strain of the COVID-19 virus, countries have begun imposing travel bans on South Africa, Nigeria, and other countries who have recorded the new variant. To this end, South Africa President Cyril Ramaphosa has called for an end to the travel ban imposed on African countries over the new Omicron COVID-19 variant. Ramaphosa said that the damage of the travel ban could be irreversible if action is not taken immediately.
As African countries, we are standing united against the imposition of arbitrary and discriminatory restrictions that are not only unscientific, but counterproductive in the long run. Indeed, the leaders of Côte d'Ivoire, where we are traveling to later today, as well as the leaders of Ghana and Senegal, have also expressed their dissatisfaction with the travel ban against South Africa and our sister countries in Southern Africa. This is a global pandemic, and overcoming it requires that we collaborate and work together as a collective. The resulting damage to this travel ban to the economies of the countries affected will be considerable and long-lasting. So I want to use this opportunity to once again call on the countries who have imposed this ban to reverse their decisions, whether they are in the northern, more developed economies or in other parts of our continent and elsewhere.
We'll take a break here and return with more stories and business. Just stay with us. Welcome back. Well, let's now join Abisola Adebayo for the latest in the world of business. Over to you, Bisola.
Thank you very much, Falashade. Welcome to Business News. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says digital innovations by the Nigerian Exchange Limited will attract technology unicorns to embrace the capital market as a viable source of capital raising. While speaking at the hybrid inaugural NGX Capital Market Conference, Osinbajo commended the NGX for focusing on digital transformation through youth inclusion, bringing a new crop of investors who used only their smartphones. On his part, Chairman Senate Committee on Capital Market Bikule Amosun urged stakeholders to be on guard to make the capital market a center for investment, thereby guaranteeing economic development and growth. We'll take a pause here and return with a review of the stock market. It's the first trading day in the month of December, but the stock market is yet to pick up from the last 2 days of low trading. It appears investors are still in profit-taking mode, although by a mild margin, as the market's key indicator tipped backward by 1.81%. At the same time, an additional 409 billion naira is knocked off the market's total value of listed equities. Specifically, at the close of trading today, the all-share index closed at 42,463 basis points, while market capitalization edged down to 22.157 trillion naira. Topping the list of shares that led the market on a downward course is MTN Nigeria. The telecommunication giant tried wooing retail investors with a price discount of 21 naira per share as its public offer opens today. Despite that, it recorded a 10% loss. It's closely followed by African Prudential PLC, who had a 50 kobo loss. On the flip side, that's our gainers list for today. Cornest and Mansa topped the gainers counter with a combined 20 kobo increase. At the end of today's trading, data shows 49% improvement in volume, 4% decline in turnover, and 10% decline in details. Moving on to the global market, that's the FTSE, the Dow Jones, and the Nikkei. It's a different story compared to previous session. London stocks bounced back towards health as what news there is on the Omicron variant turns out to be less bad than feared. Investors piled back into travel and leisure companies as the FTSE moved closer to recovering losses. The Dow Jones, in the same vein, rallied 300 points on Wednesday, bouncing back from Tuesday's stock market sell-off. Japan stocks were also higher after close on Wednesday as gains in the major sectors led shares higher. That's all on stock market review. Over to Falashade for the rest of the news.
Well, many thanks, Bisola, for that update. Now, on the foreign scene, the Ethiopian government says its forces have claimed control of numerous strategic towns previously held by Tigrayan rebels. According to Communications Service Minister Legis Tulu, the military campaign, now being led in person by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, was registering resounding victories in this country. Tulu further added that government forces have broken a rebel defense line and recaptured several towns in northwestern Amhara region state. Gains by the military in Afar and Amhara could be a blow to Tigrayan forces, would threaten to march southwards on the capital. On the sporting scene, just days after making history as the first African player to reach the quarter-final stage at the ITTF World Table Tennis Championships, Nigeria's Quadri Aruna has set another African record following the release of the latest ITTF ranking. Aruna was ranked 17th in the world before the tournament in Houston, but Aruna gained 4 steps up in the ranking to be rated 13th and the first African to achieve such a feat. Being the biggest mover among the top 20 players in the world, Aruna has continued to raise the bar for other African players, and this has earned him a place among the top 20 players invited for the 2021 World Table Tennis Cup Finals scheduled for Singapore from December 4th to 7th, 2021. And it's a wrap on our news bulletin. Many thanks for watching. I am Folashade Ogurinde. Bye for now.